Awesome. So, welcome back to the Spiritually Awakened Mom with another episode of Venus in Leo. Now, this time we're diving deep into a special analysis. This is Venus going direct in Leo. And there's some other interesting aspects that are happening during the direct stationing of Venus. So, I'm going to be discussing that as well. And I am joined by my hosts, Crystal and Stacey. And we're also going to be discussing relationships and how the impact of Venus in Leo has developed, the things that occurred personally for us or our customers or clients that have had relationship matters come and how we assisted them and helped them out. So stay tuned for that. Now, before I start with the Venus stationing direct in Leo chart, I just want to revisit the Venus ingression to Leo, which happened June 5th, 2023. And then this is the Venus retro in Leo, which happened July 22nd, 2023. And finally, Venus stationing direct September 3rd of 2023. Now, the first thing I noticed is that Venus is actually stationing direct in the seventh house, according to this chart. Now, this chart is casted for the Los Angeles area, and that's because that is where I am based. So you can adjust it for your time. I'm going to focus more on the aspects of Venus. So, like that's universal, and you're able to analyze it and also get some information of the direct chart that's matching where you're at as well. So I'm not going to focus too much on the house placements because of the fact that that can change for where you're located. But there's not too much of a change. If you're in the East Coast, most likely the ascendant's going to be in Capricorn, the sign before. So there's not too many differences in the chart, and it all depends if you're casting a whole sign or Placidus, because that could actually put some planets in different houses or even the same as whole signs. So it all depends on what you use. I'm using whole signs just to facilitate the transits and make the analysis much easier. So Venus in Leo, as it's stationing direct, is conjunct Juno, the asteroid of marriage. So this means that relationships are moving forward. Now, during the Venus retro period, I know I had a lot of clients that came to me with major relationship developments. A few that were married and some that were seriously dating and things had to break off. It was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back situations. There's also other situations of infidelity that came out. It was old events of infidelity, yet they came out now, and decisions to be made because of that. So I saw a lot of different relationship things come about, new relationships start and end as quickly as well. So one of my clients started a hot new steamy relationship right when Venus went into Leo, and she booked a reading to see if this was going to develop as something serious because there is a lot of hot and steamy chemistry, and she's been dating for a while. So she's been wanting to find the one. And as we were analyzing the chart the day before her reading, it turned out that they had an argument that disclosed some clashes in personalities, and the reading needed to happen. So she had more clarity on what she was deciding to do. So yeah, it's never really a good time to start relationships during Venus retro. However, I do believe that we experience relationships for a reason, whether they're great or not so great, because they They develop our soul, they develop our purpose, and we learn from every relationship, whether it's a good one or a bad one. We can be in relationships that are not soulmate type of relationships or meant to be relationships, but they teach you what you want in a relationship. So everything is a learning opportunity. But having Venus conjunct Juno, we're going to see a lot of marriages, or at least people that are in a partnership living together, have more things come up that are supportive to the relationship, because now we're moving forward. Lilith is also there, so Venus is kind of wedged between Juno and Lilith, and Lilith being the dark feminine, the sexual feminine. It's retrograde, so it's still not fully expressed out, bringing in some themes of communicating deep desires, because that's what Lilith represents. Now, what I've noticed was that there was a square to the moon and Jupiter coming from Taurus. And this I found interesting because Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is making an aspect to the moon that's exalted in Taurus and Jupiter. And when Venus is squaring Jupiter, it's actually an overindulgent type of aspect where it can exaggerate things or just overexpand situations, but it can also be a depleting energy, because whenever we overdo things or just say overwork, eventually we need to rest as equally. So having this overexpansion of either topics of relationship, especially money, this can actually trigger some developments that need to be addressed in a very mature and rational form. But because it's kind of exaggerated, we need to actually put in some effort, and that's where that square comes in. We need to really answer and try to resolve with executing a plan or a strategy versus being impulsive in our response. And because Uranus is there, there is some type of impulsivity or erratic behavior that can occur. However, Venus and Jupiter are the benefics of the bunch, and so is the moon. So when they're square, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but because they are squaring, there are some topics that we need to talk about and address. And this could be the financial health of the relationship. It can be in regard to how much time you spend together, or how you're going to proceed in the relationship to foster a more unified partnership. So planning date nights and romantic, getaways from daily responsibilities on a weekly basis or monthly basis would be something of a topic if that's something you're not doing, right? I know that I've struggled with balancing this in the past, where I dedicate myself to my home, my children, and pretty much after that, I'm pretty burnt out to do anything else. I'm not trying to go out on a romantic date night, get dressed up. So I had to really put effort to do that and spend time with my partner. And that was something I needed to bring into my consciousness so I can foster the relationship and not eventually fall out of love, because those are things that can happen when the partners in the relationship are not happy, which whatever form. There's some that are just satisfied with having, a date night in the living room. There's some that actually want to go out dancing. So these are conversations that need to happen. So I really do feel that this aspect of Venus squaring Jupiter and the moon in the Leo and Taurus axis is more supportive than troublesome, but yet it's not as easy because there is some action taking. Now, Venus is also making a sextile to Mars. It's not exact, it's an applying sextile. Mars is at early degrees in Libra, and that's another sign that Venus rules. So now we have Venus ruling Jupiter, ruling Uranus, ruling the moon, and ruling Mars, and Venus is direct. So she has a big impact on a lot of the planets and whatever those planets rule in our chart and whatever those planets rule in astrology, because our chart is individualized and the planets pretty much start ruling different things, which they always rule the same theme, but they'll change rules based on your house placements. But anyhow, Venus is having a great impact because it's influencing a lot of the areas in this direct chart. So that was exciting to see. And Venus is making it sextile to Mars, which Mars could be one of the troubling planets, the troublemakers, but Venus and Mars are the cosmic lovers. So action taking towards resolving whatever came up during Venus retrograde. I know for me, some of my experience of Venus retrograde was really putting myself first and doing a lot of self-care. Venus retrograde in my first house. And that was a little bit of a struggle too for my family because there was a lot of things, a lot of family demands that were happening. And I had scheduled certain appointments that I needed to make and I wasn't budging it. I was determined to go get my hair done, to go get my massage. And this didn't all happen in one day, but I scheduled them far enough so I can have time, and still things came up. And people had to step in to to do the tasks that I do normally so I can have my time, and I didn't budge from that. So I feel that I set great boundaries, and that's one of the things we talked about in the past podcast of Venus and the stages of this ingression in Leo. So yay for me, and I'm hoping to hear some of your developments and how you handled working on yourself, your wants, your values, your needs. Venus is also making a trine to Chiron, which is supporting deep healing. And this is an applying trine to the North Node as well, and a applying sextile. Now, as when Venus gets closer to the last degrees of Leo, then it'll be more of a perfected trine and sextile to the nodes. But as of now, it's still making one by house, which we know in anticipation at the end of her ingression in Leo, when she gets ready to leave Leo, we're going to see events that are catapulting us to our purpose, because the nodes talk about our karmic evolvement in this lifetime. And this is the evolvement of the collective. Especially if you have any Aries and Libra planets, then you're going to feel the evolvement through that because Venus is helping channel that energy in. So pay attention to that Leo house and Aries and Libra, because you'll get some insight on what areas of life are being channeled in so you can evolve and move forward and bring greater healing, because Chiron is also there. Chiron transits very slowly. So he's been in the sign of Aries for a while. So when we have a planet aspecting it, it's a big deal because it gets reactivated. And lastly, I wanted to bring up the Mercury retro. So although Venus is going direct, we still have Mercury retro. So Venus shows a lot of promise in regard to relationship topics, value, our resources. So all that's kind of moving forward, especially if you did some deep work, if you worked on your budget, if you worked on prioritizing your values, if you worked on your relationship, you're going to see some nice developments because you put in the work. But Mercury still retro. So the way that we're communicating these things, whether it's verbally or with body language or through written form, whatever it is, whatever form of communication, it still needs to be thought out very thoroughly because Mercury is retro. So we might put our foot in our mouth or say things that are misunderstood. So it's best to still take it slowly until when it comes to communication until Mercury goes direct, which Mercury goes direct around September the 15th, I believe, in the sign of Virgo. So that's another thing that I wanted to point out. But Mercury in Virgo has some support. It's making a perfected trine to Jupiter. So it's mitigating that square that Venus has to Jupiter. And this just shows more promising outcomes because of the fact that it's well aspected. It that same day, it also makes a trine to the moon as the moon gets closer to Jupiter. So really beautiful day. I think it's actually much easier than the other Venus stations. So when we look at this one, Mercury was next to Venus. And what I did notice is that all the charts have a Earth moon. And we start with a moon that is in not a favorable sign, Capricorn. So the moon rules Cancer, and it does not like the expression of Capricorn because it's opposite of its natural expression. Then from there, we go to the moon in Virgo, which in esoteric astrology, the moon in Virgo is considered to be in rulership. And I find that concept very interesting. I'm actually researching that and seeing how that shows up in different people's chart to see, if it works or not. I still follow the traditional rulerships, but I entertain new concepts as we evolve and evolve our mindset. And then lastly, we have the moon in Taurus. So we have like this full development of our emotions, starting from Capricorn, where they were very more matter of fact and grounded and more detached. And then we go into Virgo, where we have to be of service and how we're showing up in service, how we're serving ourselves. So it's all about like daily work. And then we go into Taurus, which is very leisure oriented, very resourceful, very abundant and fertile. So I found that very interesting that all the moons were in Earth and they kind of developed as like, Venus ingresses Leo. It told us we're going to do some work. Capricorn rules the sign of career and achievements, right? And then Virgo rules daily work. And then when Venus stations direct, it's Taurus, which is the money that we earn through the work that we do. Those are our resources, what we accumulate, how we spend that money, and how we enrich our lives. And that's why Venus rules resources and our values, because through our resources, we're able to purchase things that we value and bring value into our life and bring experiences that we treasure. So just found that one to be very interesting. Now, this is the Venus cycle. We're looking at all the charts put together, Venus ingress, Leo, Venus stationing retro, and Venus direct. So we start with the ingression right in the center. And then we have the retro in the middle. And then we have the direct on the outside. So there's slight changes because this was in a short period of time. So we want to look at the planets that move the quickest, which is going to be the moon, Mercury, and Venus is going to stay in Leo. So Venus typically moves quickly, but in this case, we knew it was going to stay in Leo. But we start with Venus ingressing the sign of Leo 000 here, and it was with Mars. Then when it stationed retro, it was with Mercury. And then now it does not have Mercury nor Mars near her, but they are communicating support with the other aspects. So overall, this cycle was very exciting, and hopefully we found our inner voice and we embraced the motto of Leo, which is I create. And in this case for Venus, I create a life that I value. I create a life that I adore. I create a life where I am the queen of my castle. Thank you. And let's see. Now we can discuss more about relationships. So, ladies, how was Venus in retro for you all?
Um, well, for me personally, Stacey over here, it was a lot of internal work about what I was putting outward, basically. So I took a class by our lovely astrologist Crystal over here, and it was in regards to words and how they add up to a numerical value that could then show you a degree in a chart, which then you compare against yours and see whether or not it brings a higher or low frequency to you. Well, in doing the exercise, I realized I was putting it off. And it was because I was in a place um, where all of my words, not all of them, but a portion of them, I recognized that I was saying a lot were not in the highest of vibrations. Um, and yeah, I had to sit back and think, like, where's this coming from? A lot of inner child things, a lot of past trauma, and just kind of rerouted the way that I'm not just talking to myself, my kids, my husband, and other people, um, but my internal self as well. I also finished a big project in my house that was done last week and has already created a huge change in energetic flow in my house. And it's been amazing because my kids have been behaving better. And I'm like revamping the whole way. This Venus in this house is running everything. So
Yes.
it was a lot of internal stuff. And I redid our budget and found money that I didn't know we had.
I
So
love
it was,
that. That's always a good thing, right? Finding money you didn't know you had.
mm-hmm. Sat down, I looked at where we were spending and it helps an awful lot. Also, crazy fun fact, because this Venus retro for everybody, if you want to go back and look at past events, right? It's the cycle is every 7 years. So this would have been 2015. So in thinking about the Venus in 2015, I started a very tumultuous and um, just horribly traumatic relationship. I got, three beautiful kids out of it. I learned a lot of lessons. And then I also had a long time business meeting with somebody that I came across briefly in 2015. And I had at that point in time spoken outwardly a business idea that got halted due to this relationship, but somebody else actually picked it up from Colorado, where I moved to after this relationship in 2015, and they are thriving in it. And so I was just like, man, I could have started that, and it's a whole different, would have been a whole different world how it played out, and I actually see it now.
But it's never too late. That's just the universe answering you that it's still a possibility. And I actually feel that's even better because they're vouching that it's going to be successful versus you going for it and then still doubting in the back of your mind, is this really going to work? Am I really going to be able to do this? Now I feel like with this information, it's showing you you can do it. Someone took your idea and is being successful with it. So I don't know. I kind of feel it's like a good thing. What do you think?
Um, I think this is a test from the universe, just kind of like it was in 2015. I kind of chose the wrong curveball, but it took me in a different avenue at that point in time. I had a teenage daughter, and I was putting everything into that part of my career, but also not paying attention to her needs other than what I was providing for financially. I got distracted, and now I have younger children, and I'm getting the opportunity to choose to either go 100% forward in a career that I did for a very, very long time that will take me away from my kids a whole lot and back to the same thing, or I could choose to not do it again and tend to more of my family and home life instead of chasing my past life and career, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And
Totally.
you're you're just bringing a conversation that I think many of us being mothers and on top of that being working mothers have to deal with. We need to balance work, life, and children and marriage. And I think that's one of the reasons we decided to come together and form the spiritually awakened mom because it's not just about being a mom. It's not just about being a business owner or an employee or a wife, right? It's like everything. We have to balance all that. So you brought up, I think, like a concern that most of us have on what do we choose? Do we choose a career that is taking us away from our family and maybe we have enough money to pay for sitters or extracurricular, but we're not there, right? Or do we choose to balance that out where we work less hours and spend more time with our family and take maybe a pay cut because we're not working as much? Or do we fully vest ourselves into taking care of our children? Like, I think all of us have had to make a decision in this area at some point or the other. I know I did. And everyone makes their own decision, and I don't think a single decision is the right one because that's when you have to dig deep into your values. What is it you value more? And I know one of the things that I valued is quality time with my children. And that's like a top priority for me because as I was growing up, I knew my mom wanted to be there, but she couldn't be there as a single mom. And that is why I feel that I am a little different in my parenting because of that. So I'm not angry about it. I'm not scorn or unhappy about it because I really feel that my childhood helped me become the person that I am now. But I know that I want to be involved in my children's life at a different level. So I try very diligently to balance all of it out. So I think you bring like a good point. Like, what is it that you value? Wow, that's like an amazing Venus retrograde internal journey that you did there.
That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It had its moments of clarity, but it was nice, and now coming at the end of it, all of my kids, every one of them will be in full-time school starting next Tuesday, and I am so excited for them.
Yay for school!
Hallelujah.
Yes.
Oh, well,
Oh,
I
so
have
how was
had a, oh, go ahead. We can
I was
edit.
going to say, how was yours, Stacey?
Yeah, I've definitely had an interesting whole Venus and Leo. I did right at the beginning of it. I met somebody on my birthday weekend, and we dated for a little bit, and I broke it off with him on 8/8. It just so happened that that was the day, and I was like, oh wait, hold on. That's interesting. But it's interesting that you bring up that 7-year pattern, because 2015 was the year that I got divorced. And the reason that I broke it off with the person that I was seeing was that I was beginning to see patterns with myself, um, and boundaries, and the same communication where the boundaries where I was letting things slip and just ignoring certain things, um, and and the communication just was, I was starting to see the same patterns I was seeing um, in other relationships that I've had, where it was just like this, you can't teach somebody or train somebody to have better communication if this is the issue. It's just not going to get better from here. I've seen it. We've tried. And so, he was a very nice person. He's just not my person. And then I've done a lot of stuff around the house and just really have changed a lot. And um, yeah, it feels so much nicer in there. There's so much less anxiety. I feel more at peace. It's great.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Do you mind me casting a chart on the date that you called it off?
Yeah.
No, I can do that really quickly. What is the time that this happened?
Oh, let me see.
I'm just curious because the reason I remember 8/8 is because that's a Lionsgate portal.
Yeah.
And there was some intense energy coming in on that date. From the top of my head, Mars was forming I think it was a trine, um, or was it a square? We'll see right now. It might be a trine. I think it was a trine to Uranus, and the sun was forming a square. Yeah, from Leo, the sun was forming a square, and Venus was forming a square to Uranus. So there was just like a lot of intensity with relationships because Venus squaring Uranus brings epiphanies. So I'm just curious to know, like, do you just like wake up and you're like, no, I
Yeah,
want
literally, because it was at 6:38 a.m.
okay.
I was like, like I had been wrestling with it for a few days, and I was just like, I'm just gonna sleep on it and I will have my answer in the morning. And I had a really crazy, crazy dream. Uh, and then I woke up and I was like, just kind of analyzing my dream. And I was like, yeah, that's a sure sign that it's not gonna work. And so I just made the call. And then what's really weird is later on that day, I got an unexpected visit from a toxic family member.
Um, lots of
And
purpose that day then.
yeah, just shows up at my door. I just don't answer anymore. I don't pretend like I'm not home. I just don't answer.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not healthy, it's not healthy.
Yeah,
It
not
is what it
healthy.
is. But this is the chart. Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
So, yes, I was right about the square of the sun to the moon. But look at Venus retro conjunct the ascendant. Venus was just about to rise. And this is a power position for any planet because just imagine the ascendant like the horizon. So this is like the underworld, and then this is the sky up here. And when Venus crosses over, she's born into the sky. Now the sun's out, so we won't be able to see Venus because the sun pretty much brightens up the entire sky and we can't see anything, right? Just like blue sky. But Venus is there no matter what, the planets are out there. So that's, I mean, the circumstance not cool, but just to see how astrology works, this is crazy cool. Venus retro rising, this is like, nope, it's not working. And because it's forming that square to Uranus, you just got that epiphany. Like you said, you had a dream, you woke up and you're like, nope, it's cool. This is it. I think we can part ways here. And, you mentioned he's a good guy. He's just not your guy. So you did it in the nicest way possible. Jupiter on conjunct the midheaven with the moon. So you were caring about how you communicated that. Yet it was still like an epiphany type of moment where you're like, nope, everything's leading to a no. And it's okay. We can call it off. So crazy how astrology works. But yes, there was some intense energy that day. I won't forget it because I did a workshop that day, and I had mentioned it's kind of mixed. Not like too great, not too bad, but because of the square that Venus is making to Uranus, there was going to be some developments. And I think I spoke about this in the previous podcast that we did, because this aspect right here is the second square that Venus makes to Uranus. Now that Venus stationed direct, it's going to make the last square, which would be the third square, right before it leaves the sign of Leo. So like the final purging. So with you had to kind of reflect, like you said, your values, and not just with that relationship, but with other relationships, you're setting clear boundaries. And yes, they're not the ideal thing to work on because I mean, it's painful. Any relationship is ending is painful. Like we feel some type of way, others more than than others. Some we binge on ice cream, and some it's just like I just don't feel the greatest. Just want to stay in. But no matter what, there's something in us that needs to like shut down a bit to really reflect on what's going on so we can process what just happened. So I think our relationships that end have that, impact on us, that unless you're narcissistic, and that's totally different conversation, right? You might not care. But yeah, so yeah, it's kind of cool. Thank you for sharing this, Stacey. Yeah, like just looking at the chart itself, I'm like, not a surprise that this is when you your moment, your epiphany.
Yeah. Yeah, just mind blowing just to see that moment in time in the stars.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's crazy. Like, yeah, because you really don't think about that when it's happening.
And this is like why these synchronistic charts, they like it's like mind blowing. They just blow me away because sometimes, I mean, as an astrologer, I tend to plan a lot of things because I already know how astrology works. But there are some things that I am so impulsive about, I just do. And then later on, I check and I cast a chart and I was like, wow, look at that. Look at how everything worked. Like this was happening and and I didn't plan it. I just did it. I just couldn't have, something in me just says do it and I do it. So this was something you didn't check. You just went with it and it just shows in the chart itself that it was the perfect thing to do at that time. So yeah, but there's also some hidden healing within this lesson for you.
For
and
sure.
I think you know this for sure. And this is coming from arrows right here. So this is a point that I always add to my relationship astrologies and readings. And this month I just was bombarded with just relationship readings. Like everyone that booked was like, what is happening? So I just kept arrows on. But look, arrows is right on the descendant, and the descendant is the cusp of relationships. It is retrograde. So exactly what you said was like you actually went to a place where this new person was reminding you of past relationships. And that's what retro is, past, right? We're reversing, we're going back. And it's past love matters, and arrows signifies, think of the mythology of Cupid. How I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but I'm sure everyone knows who Cupid is, but maybe not his mythology. But he's kind of like a prankster. He would shoot people and make them fall in love. And these could be like complete enemies, and just they'll get shot with his arrow and they look at each other and they're madly in love with each other. But it was just like a facade. It wasn't true love. But then there was times that it was true love because it was mutual and they fall deeper in love. So arrows being on the descendant, like literally right on the same degree, and it's retro, it's showing you you learned that this pattern is not what you want in relationships. And you actually said that. You're like, I learned like this is not like you can't change a person, and I'm not gonna want to change the person, but I know exactly what I do not want, and it's this same pattern again. So it's okay. So yeah, very cool. Just
Yeah,
I love
very
stuff.
cool.
I
Very
love
cool.
stuff. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing with that.
yeah, there definitely was quite a bit of healing and a lot of introspection and releasing of old patterns of just mine, because my behavior attracts what like there's a reason why I attracted him.
Yes.
uh if I figure that out and then if I figured out what I'm doing that's attracting and heal that part of me, then we're not going to have to worry about that issue anymore, because then
How
it's
does
going to
that
be
saying, how does that saying go? My perception of you is a reflection of me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And the first and second house talk about that. The first being you, and the seventh being the reflection. And
yeah,
that's even Venus retro opposing, reflecting arrows. And it's the relationship aspect. And it's squaring Uranus, where this is also a point that's very interesting, the part of fortune, because there is a pot of gold in the situation. There is a beautiful lesson here. So not all bad. Yeah, the relationship ended, but
yeah.
it's all for development. Like this is the stuff we love, right, Stacey? Like
No,
digging
it's
deep.
amazing to, again, it's so amazing to see that on a screen and go, this is exactly what was happening, and this is why. And and it makes you feel like a lot less lost in life, I think.
Yeah, and more validated because
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, so it was meant to happen. And
Oh yeah, because there's always that shit, did I do the right thing?
Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's astrology, as I tell Crystal, astrology and her readings and just mentorship and teaching
yeah,
has saved my life in so many different ways and explained so much. Um, yeah, and I use it every day. And then I again now I'm learning new things, and it brought forth a whole different level of introspection and um, using my words and how I'll interact more with my family, my business planning, uh, and people I deal with and stuff. So it's amazing. I love this stuff. So
oh,
yes. Thank you for the kind words. And we're Cece or Crystal, we're gonna say it interchangeably. We have two crystals here.
yeah,
Um, I taught astrogematria, and that is the art of turning words into a degree that you can then analyze and see how that vibration of that phrase or word is interacting with your natal chart, and if it's supportive or if it's causing blockages. And I love it. I use it in everything. It's my secret tool. I don't want to say weapon, but it is. And you don't have to know too much astrology to understand it, but you do need to know the basics because you're going to analyze it as you would like a planet. So you have to know enough to understand the houses, the aspects, and Crystal's pretty advanced in astrology. So, yeah, she had some amazing questions on how to utilize that. And one of the exercises that I had them do is look at the vocabulary that they use, because that is a vibration, and every language has a vibration too. And this is actually something I was just thinking about today because I'm putting a course together on astrocartography. And there is this big, and that's funny because Mercury's still retro, so Mercury ruling travel. Um, there's this big divide within the astrology community that you are fated to your natal chart and where you were born, and that's that. And I haven't moved much. I stayed where I was born. I literally live like 30 minutes away from where I was born. But I know Crystal has moved a lot in her life, and I'm sure she can vouch that her experience in, just say, Denver was way different than her experience in Tennessee. So if she would have stayed in one place, or like just say the place she was born, her experience would have been different there too. I had a mom that relocated as well. My mother came from a different country, so her experience would have been different. So that's like my argument back to astrocartography. How could you moving not impact your destiny? It does. And how does that show up? By shifting your houses, by having a relocated chart, which no matter what, our natal chart is our natal chart, and our relocated chart is still our chart, but it's just relocated to the new place that you're at. And it's that same moment in time you were born, but if you were actually born in the other place. So the sun's still going to be in the same place, everything's going to be in the same place, but the houses shift. And I've seen it time and time again from people moving and finding success in different countries because they shift their planets. And it doesn't just have to be different countries, it can be different places. So, just how we live out our life is like just like a product of the area that we live. Like we vibrationally are attached to that area for a reason. And whenever we decide to move, we're done with it. So it's the same thing when we see these cycles in astrology and how they impact us. And like how Crystal was saying, the words that we say, the words that we use often, they all have a vibration. So everything is energy. Just goes back to everything is energy. And if we believe that a planet going retro in the sky affects us, I mean, why wouldn't a location affect us too? So it's just, that's interesting that you brought that up, and it just brought me to this big tangent. I'm sorry, but I just needed to talk about this, I guess, because I talk to myself about it all day, and I'm like, how could it, but so here I am having my own little debate in my head. Like, there has to be a difference. Now, Crystal, how do you feel about that? Do you think your experience was the same in Denver than in Tennessee?
Oh no, it's completely different. Well, I I met lovely Stacey in Denver, and that was probably about the only good thing that came out of that place. Um, but no, it was not the place for me. a couple other life events that happened through there, and it's 100% pretty much landlocked, and there's not big masses of water. And I am, as mentioned before, all air and one fire planet, basically. So I need water and earth. And I mean, you could get earth anywhere, but you can't get large bodies of water anywhere. So that was driving me nuts there. Tennessee, um, it was warmer for me, so I love that because I'm a big heat humidity person. And there were bodies of water larger that I could find close by. But now I'm in the East Coast over in Baltimore, and I love it. I actually feel more at home here than I do where I was born in Chicago.
Isn't that interesting?
Hmm.
It, I just love it because where we live, our vibration changes. It's like a totally different experience. It's not the same. And you can see it a lot with people that travel. I haven't traveled much, so I think this is why it fascinates me. Like I've traveled, but I haven't moved. So, going to a place temporarily is not the same as actually living there and experiencing it for at least a year, like day in and day out. So, I like to hear stories or experiences of people and their, either travel expeditions that they have there a few weeks or them moving here and living abroad or whatever it is, because they'll share that it's different and every city has its own vibration too. So no city is the same. Like I'm from the city of angels. We have Stacey from
Denver, but well, I live in Denver now, but I grew up in Michigan.
oh,
And
Michigan is
I
different
think,
too.
yeah. And let me tell you, that is like night and day. Um, it's definitely feels so much better here. Well, I do agree with Crystal, especially coming from a peninsula state. Um, that's the one thing that kills me is like there's not a whole lot of water, but there's enough for me. Like I'll go to the lake every now and then to get my fix of water. And if I'm going hiking, I always make sure to hike on a trail where there's like a stream or a river so I can put my feet in it. And there's plenty of them. There's plenty of waterfalls out here, but it's really dry. But those mountains, man, oh, they like it's something when you've been away and the time you first glimpse you get of the mountains when I come back home and it's just like, yeah, I'm home.
Beautiful.
And I lived in Florida for like 2 months and that's about all I could take. The bugs, man, and those little freaking lizards, they're so gross.
I have lizards too.
I have lizards here, and those things are great. I send the kids to catch them, and it keeps them busy for a while.
Yeah, my kids used to play with them too when they were little. And now my mom, her cat, oh, he collects them. Like, poor things. He plays with them. He brings them to us, and I'm like, leave it alone. Stop killing all the lizards. But yeah, I live I mean, it's not like Colorado. I wouldn't say mountainy area, but it's still, it's uphill. And we get like a lot of lizards and mountain mice and um I don't see much snakes, but we do have like garden snakes. Um yeah, the little animals like that. And I'm okay. I got used to them. But yeah, I love where I live. Like I love the weather. I love living in Los Angeles. I just don't see myself going anywhere else. And maybe when I get older and retire, I would like to go near the beach. That's my only dream, but it wouldn't be in the US. I would go somewhere nice and tropical. That's the only reason I would move. Other than that, I'll stay here. And I mean, when I look at my chart, you'll see where my planets fall, and it makes sense because I have a lot of planets in the fourth house. So I feel like this place is home. So yeah, in relocated chart, you'll see what happens in your fourth house, and that's what calls your home. So very interesting. I just love this stuff. I love astrology, and I love deep transformational work. So anything that you ladies are up to, any cool offers or anything like that that you would like to inform us about?
Anything new going on quite yet, but I am always accepting new clients. You can go to my website, and I know we have that in the description or whatever. So, always accepting new clients. I love, love, love to work with people on just like the stuff we talk about in these podcasts. I like to help a lot of moms with their stressed out lives. And, I work with people on healing their inner child. I also do surgery, pre and post surgery hypnosis, pain management,
Oh,
and
Stacey,
also past life regressions.
I want to stop you there because I want you to share the story of your um is it post? Yes, post hypnosis healing when you accidentally cut.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, that was I actually really wasn't going to go into that side of the hypnosis. But then I had a little accident when I was looking for artwork for my office. And I went to a store and I was looking through a big bin of very large picture frames, and it was very overfilled. And one of the frames snapped back on my hand and severed a tendon in my thumb, so I had to have surgery. And I thought to myself, well, this would be a pretty good opportunity for me to figure out this pre and post surgery hypnosis and see, what I can do for myself. And so I did, and I worked on myself. And my surgeon was thoroughly impressed with the speed of my healing. He took my stitches out early. And when I went in for my first post checkup, he actually called in another surgeon and was like, "Come here, look at this. Have you ever heard of hypnosis for pre and post surgery? You got to look at this." Um, and then I did not need for the pain. I took ibuprofen for the first day, and everything else was hypnotic glove anesthesia because I am not. I mean, it may work for some people, and that's great, but I am not for big pharma for me because I am that person that gets all of the side effects and none of the benefits, that's okay for me because I'd rather use natural remedies.
And I thought that was amazing when you said that. So I think shortly after that, I broke my leg. And when I went to the ER, they were telling me that I'm most likely gonna need surgery. And so I broke my leg, I broke my foot, and then I broke my ankle. So it was a little bit above my ankle. So they kind of classify that as still like the lower leg. So I didn't break the ankle bone, but it's just like a little bit above that. And I remember doing a self hypnosis, and I was just imagining it healing and not needing surgery. And it took about a week because they put like a temporary splint, and then it took about a week to see the ortho. And when I saw the ortho, they had to do 3 x-rays because the first x-ray they got from the ER, they kept on saying this is not the same, like this is wrong, like is it? So they were putting an x-ray on both feet, And they're like, no, you're not going to need surgery. Everything's in place. And I was just like, OMG. I can't believe it. Now, it wasn't highly deviated, but it was like in the first x-ray, they were showing me how it was lowered, like the I guess the break, the kind of the bone went a little down, so it wasn't in place. But then when I went in to see this ortho, it had like popped in place. And I remember I was elevating and I was just imagining like it healing itself, and it's like I was sending all my cells and my troops like down there. I mean, I don't do this stuff. I do hypnosis, but that's not like a service I offer. I did it for myself because I had a broken leg, and I'm sure Stacey can take care of you if this is something you want. But it works because I witnessed it. I was like, I don't want surgery. Surgery's not happening. And I made sure my body was like, okay, surgery's not happening. And I think I healed pretty quickly too. So yeah, hypnosis really works. If you change your mindset, your whole body starts, to follow the program. So when Stacey told me that, I just like, whoa, I couldn't believe it. Like, and then I had an experience where I can test it out myself, and I'm just like, whoa, this stuff is amazing. Now, what about pregnancy? Do you offer any services for women that are um going through labor? Because I know one of the reasons I didn't have any more kids is because honestly, I hate the whole labor. Like, I had both of my kids natural, and I feel like they're like mini deaths. I took no anesthesia, no nothing, and I'm just like, I don't know what I did to myself. The second time around, I had every intention to take it. I got to the hospital too late. So I don't know if you offer any of those services for women that want to better prepare themselves for labor or anything.
Not at this time, just because I haven't had a demand for it. However, if somebody is interested in that, that is definitely something I'm open to. I just tend to attract more in the other areas, but I do have training on that. So
Awesome. I just, I
thing
was
you
just
can do,
wondering since you
yeah,
have
they
a nice little Taurus fertile stellium in your chart.
yeah, fertile myrtle over here. I mean, yeah, uh, both my kids were conceived on birth control.
That's very
My
fertile.
my son was um, a very quick delivery. We didn't even make it to the hospital. Had him in the bathroom because it
Wow.
was like, oh, I don't feel good. Oh, look, there's a baby.
Well, at least it was fast.
It's fast. Yeah, no drugs there. And then my daughter, I had induced because um, we were worried that might happen again. And then she was very quick, except for her umbilical cord was wrapped around her leg. And so she was just like, come out and go back in, come out, go back in, come out and go back in.
Wow, that's interesting. That's it. Usually it's wrapped around somewhere else. So, I mean, at least it was her leg and not,
Yeah.
that sounds
Oh, yeah.
painful. Come back.
But I always said, there's no way in hell I will ever let somebody do a C-section. And then I got the wonderful opportunity to be in the room with our lovely Crystal when she had her C-section. And now I have a whole different perspective on it.
Oh, isn't that cool?
Yes, yes. Stacy was in the hospital the day that I gave birth to my twins. She was my partner that day, so she got to see me and all of the surgery glory. It was a crazy situation. One day when we're all for it, maybe I'll do a podcast about an episode where we all came into our friendships and the crazy stuff that happened.
Yeah,
She got to see me, and
in an episode on our pregnancy stories.
Ooh, yeah, that could be fun. Oh, I had some weird pregnancy things. You name it, it happened.
No,
Uh,
because like having twins and a C-section, I mean, I'm sure, Crystal, like that, I can't even imagine that. Like, honestly, I think that's one of the hardest things in motherhood. It's like having the baby, like at least for me, like I don't know, maybe I just can't. Like I just can't. Like I can't. It was so painful. It was just nothing can describe the pain. Like I had friends that would ask me, and I was like, I don't know. Like think of your worst period cramp times a million. Like it's just terrible. So I mean, at least with a C-section, you don't feel that, right, Crystal?
that's for
You
sure.
know, no. So the beginning part of the labor with my twins, which is weird, was actually really easy, and I didn't have very painful contractions. Now, the actual C-section itself is probably one of the most bizarre things that I've ever been through in my life. I remember laying on the operating table and looking at Stacey and being like, this is fucking weird. And I feel like I'm on a lot of fucking drugs. I was like, I feel high as hell, Stacey. And
You
it
totally
looks
was
like
like
a
doing LSD
spaceship.
at a concert.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Oh, that's crazy.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was great. It was great. I like because I was like watching what they were doing on the other side of the curtain, and I'd like look back at her and be like, "What do you feel right now?"
They're all like moving her guts.
I feel great. It's awesome. I'm like, it don't look awesome, girl. I don't even want to tell you what's happening to your body right now because I'm freaking scared. But
Wow. Yeah. I would love to hear that. I would love to hear it. I didn't need to get a C-section, even though my first baby, he was breech, but not like feet first. It was the upside down breech where their face was up instead of down. So he still needed a turn, or if I push him out like that, I think the doctor said the pelvic bone will break his nose. So I needed to turn him, and I was like so close to getting a C-section, but I just refused it. I had no idea why, because it was my first baby, and I knew that I said that would be the last resort, but I was like, I'm gonna have this baby naturally. And then when I had the baby naturally, I was like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like I should have just probably had the C-section. Um, but yeah, and then the next time around was like totally different. It was much easier, but I think that's one of the most painful things of motherhood, like having the baby. I don't know. I give it to
I
the
feel like
lady.
it's supposed to be like that because then everything after that is like not as bad. So when your kid does something really messed up, you're like,
Yeah,
oh, but it wasn't as bad as childbirth.
yeah, yeah. I guess.
I got it. I got it. It's cool.
Yeah, or you're just like scared shitless, and you just make sure you don't get pregnant again.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, I guess that we can see it that way too. Yeah. Well, this was fun. I always enjoy talking it up with you ladies, and hopefully we had a great revelation during Venus retro, and now going forward we continue to reap the rewards and sow the seeds that we've planted. And I wish you both a beautiful ending to the Venus in Leo, especially for Crystal because it's transiting her first house. And yeah. And I mean also Stacey, but it's not as prominent on Stacey's chart as it is in Crystal's. So yeah, let's enjoy this rest of the Venus in Leo transit.
Nope. I am going to thank you, ladies, for sharing your evening with me. It's been fun. Until next time.